Good morning. You're listening to Retake Our Democracy, a 30-minute weekly show that airs on KSFR 101.1 FM, your Santa Fe public radio station. My name is Paul Gibson. I'm the host of Retake Our Democracy. And
hi, I'm Roxanne Barber. I'm the co-founder of Retake Our Democracy.
And today she's going to be the co-host of this radio show.
Welcome, everyone.
So last week we aired an old interview as I'd planned an interview with a guest who had to cancel at the last minute. The week prior, I interviewed James Jimenez, CEO for Voices for Children, one of our favorite ally organizations. We spoke about the state budget and our very unhealthy reliance upon gas and oil revenues. That's particularly germane to our situation in terms of climate change. We also discussed some of the changes in the New Mexico legislature, especially as relates to taxes and revenue legislation. It was an eye-opening show. The week before that, I spoke with two advocates from EarthCare and Yucca, Seneca Johnson and Miguel Acosta. And that was really interesting. We talked about how Yucca and EarthCare, their founding organization, had instituted a mutual aid society or a network. And through that, they collected and distributed $500,000 to people who were not getting care aid from the federal government.
And that's just in the Santa Fe community?
Just in the Santa Fe and surrounding community, I believe. I'm not positive about that, but it's just a great, I mean, that's just one organization going, something needs to happen, stepping out and getting it done. Brilliant. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Roxanne Barber, my wife and cohort. We're going to discuss our retake strategy for the 2022 legislative session, which is now only about 2 months away. And we also want to lay out how we try and make it easier for people like you to be active and effective constituent advocates at the Roundhouse. So if you're driving around and miss any of this show, you can watch the full show on YouTube, our YouTube recording. And you can also watch any prior show that we've done by going to retakeourdemocracy.org, clicking on the actions and events menu, and then scrolling down to the link to Retake Conversations, where all our shows are listed in chronological order. I also want to acknowledge that we are conducting this show on stolen Tewa land, and to thank our Tewa neighbors for being such good stewards of the land. We have a lot to learn from them. Finally, I want to remind you that the 2022 legislative session is just 2 months away. I believe I already reminded you of that. And Retake will be operating our legislative alert system again this year, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Well, Roxanne and I were visiting our friends and our daughter in California. Quite a lot happened here in New Mexico. There was the summit, blah, blah, blah.
The New Mexico Climate Summit.
New Mexico Climate Summit, I'm sorry. The governor's net zero announcement. The PRC hearing examiner's recommended decision on the Avangrid Iberdrola
P&M
merger.
Yeah.
And now the government's announcement of her hydrogen plan as the centerpiece of her legislation for 2022.
You mean the governor? You said government.
Governor's announcement.
It's okay. Just clarifying.
My editor here. We'll cover each of these briefly, but the focus of today's show is on organizing for the 2022 legislative session. And we don't need to go into great detail on each of these different initiatives because we've written extensively about them in blogs. At the New Mexico Climate Summit, the governor announced her plan to introduce net zero legislation in the 2022 session. And while Sierra Club and other corporate enviros sang entirely uncritical praise, Retake took some time to actually explore what net zero is, and we developed 2 posts last weekend that outline concerns about net zero. We're not alone. This is an international outrage about net zero, and so that's going to be one of those bills that we're going to be opposing at the 2022 session. And the way it has been introduced suggests a very uncritical process may be about to unfold. Basically, what we're concerned about is that in 2019, the Energy Transition Act was introduced, and there was almost no capacity to offer input. Before the the bill was even introduced, they had 20 sponsors before, or even written. They had 20 sponsors and 20 or 30 organizations that were endorsing it based on promises made. We're going to talk a little bit about those promises and how that's played out in a little bit. But a good way to get caught up on all of this is to go to retakeourdemocracy.org and look for the two most recent posts. Now it's Solnit, one of them, the first one is Solnit Dares to Hope, and the second being Counting the Dots, COP26, Connecting the Dots, COP26, Net Zero, and the ETA. This past weekend, we published a third piece, Tell the Governor and Speaker you do not want an uncritical stampede for her net zero and hydrogen schemes. So go to retakeourdemocracy.org to check them out, and they all appear on the homepage in descending chronological order. So start at the bottom and work up. I promise you won't be sorry. Now, no doubt you've all heard that the PRC Chief Hearing Examiner has recommended denying the proposed Avangrid-Iberdrola merger
with PNM.
with PNM. The impulse is to sit back and just celebrate and figure out how did we win this, because we were fighting a battle against a billion-dollar corporation. The impulse is to then sit back and relax. But the truth is, and not many people realize this, is that the commissioners can negotiate a deal with PNM and Avangrid Iberdrola if they feel like it is in the best interest of New Mexico, despite the ruling by the hearing examiner. It doesn't happen often, but there's going to be an immense amount of pressure levied by the governor, who has put a lot of her personal capital into this merger. And so we're going to be publishing a post next week with speaking points and contact information so that you can reach out to your PRC commissioner and also reach out to other influencers in your community, whether that's city council members, commissioners, your state legislator, so that they can also contact the PRC.
And urge them to vote no on the merger.
Yes.
Right. It's just a point of clarification. I think what happened when the hearing examiner recommended denying that merger, but also in that long recommendation, he said, well, if they do this, 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 and this, then it would be a better deal. So we're sort of expecting some of those commissioners are going to jump on that and try to make those changes and to make it more palatable, but we'll see what happens.
I'm guessing it won't be our commissioner, Steve Fishman. I don't think he'll be jumping on the opportunity, but
well, we hope
might.
Joe Maestas won't either.
So in any case, Roxanne, how about you sharing our legislative advocacy, how our legislative advocacy works now that we are approaching the session?
Sure. And some of you who know Retake know all about this, but if we have any new listeners or people that need a reminder, we're basically here to help make your advocacy easier and less time consuming. So one of the things that we do just prior to and especially during the legislative session is we communicate with people via our alert system. So we send you alerts when bills are coming up for hearings. We send you speaking points, and we send you all the contact info you need to contact the people who are in your legislature, who are going to be voting on those bills.
And by the way, and if it is a Zoom-based, or if Zoom-based is part of it, we also include information and links so that you can join these hearings by Zoom.
Right. And we don't know yet this year. We're assuming they're going to be, all the hearings will be available via Zoom and you can participate that way. But there looks like there could be some in-person participation, but we don't know about that yet. So we will keep you informed about that. So typically in the past, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, we've supported anywhere from, I don't know, around 40 to 50 bills. But because some of you know, Paul had a stroke back in July, and that's limited our capacity because his recovery also requires a lot of my time. So we are going to go a little light this year, and we're going to try to keep it to about 10 bills.
12.
10, 12. See, that's what we do. We usually say 20 and then we wind up with 40, but it's going to have to be 10. Okay, let's say 12 max. So not as many bills, but we're going to be really even more careful and deliberate than we usually are in choosing which bills we support.
I think the problem and the reason we've done that too is because we wind up with, we get 20 bills and that's what we're going to support. And then 5 more bills get introduced that are just so great that you look at them and you go, how could we not support those bills?
Or 10 more or 15 more. I know there's a lot of
it's not easy, folks.
Great legislation. And so things come up that we didn't expect. And then we say, gosh, how can we not support this? But we're going to have to be very discerning this year. If you would like to participate and get speaking points and learn about the legislation that's coming up in 2022, please sign up for our alert system. And you can do that by going to retakeourdemocracy.org, and right there on the homepage, look for the red button on the right side that says Get Action Alerts. And basically all you need to do is click that button and put in your email, and you will start getting the alerts, which should be starting probably pre-session, so sometime in December.
Right.
And then you'll get them very frequently once the session starts, and this year it's only a 30-day session, so it's going to move very quickly. So as we said, we don't know yet whether there's going to be in-person participation, maybe some sort of a hybrid where you can participate by Zoom, which is great for all of you who don't live near Santa Fe. But we'll keep you updated on that once we know more.
Or those of you who don't want to spend like an entire evening in a hearing room.
Right. You can just have it on Zoom in the background at home while you get other things done.
Yeah, that was our life last year for sure. If a significant part of the session is open to the public, we're going to need several volunteers who are going to be very comfortable with speaking ad lib on the bills we support and oppose in hearings. In the past, I attended virtually every single hearing, and I'm not going to be able to do that this year, not even close. So we're going to need, if that's something you're interested in doing, please write to us at retakeresponse@gmail.com.
No, it's retakeresponse@gmail.com. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was .org. Okay.
She could think I make a mistake.
I make mistakes too. Okay, that's great. So if you're interested in learning more about how the legislature works, don't just sign up for the alerts. We're going to start having what we call our legislative huddles, which are meetings via Zoom. We're starting them next month. The first one is going to be on Thursday, December 2nd from 6 to 7 p.m. And we'll if you signed up for the alert, are we going to send the link out via alert?
Yeah, we're going to put it in a blog.
And we'll put it in the blog. So we hope that you can join us. And at that first meeting, Thursday, December 2nd, 6 p.m., we're going to determine a regular schedule of these huddles and do them. What were we doing them every other week?
We were doing them every Friday from 3:30 to 4:30 during the session.
Legislation is.
But Roxanne raised the point, and it was a really valid point, that 3:30 to 4:30 cuts out anybody who works a regular schedule. And so we're going to work with the people who get on that first Zoom huddle and try and identify a better time.
The best day of the week, best time for everyone. Yeah, we want to get as many people, make it as accessible as we can to as many people. So these huddles are a good way to learn about how the legislative session is unfolding, how you can advocate more effectively, and they're fun too, because a lot of people that start following the hearings, they have information to share, and we get people on there who have special knowledge about some of the topics, and they make clarifications for us, and it's just an interesting conversation. So I hope you can join us. If you'd like to join the huddles, you can look for the Zoom link at the blog at retakeourdemocracy.org, or you can simply write to us, email us at retakeresponse@gmail.com, and we'll send you more info. And if you plan to be offering public comment during the legislature, it'll be really important for you to join those huddles. It'll be really helpful.
Yeah, because one of the things we do during the huddles is we'll talk about what were some of the concerns and questions raised by legislators and opponents in prior hearings. And so if you're going to be speaking on a bill that has already been heard once or twice, you'll be able to get information about how you should hone your comments to anticipate the concerns that will come up later from these opponents. So to whet your appetite, how about Roxanne, you introduce some of the bills we're going to support?
So we'll talk now about some of the bills we already know will be introduced for the 2022 session. I'm sure there will be lots that we don't know of, but we'll just tell you a little bit about 5 bills that we know we're going to be supporting. So number 1, the public bank, state public bank.
Right. And we've been, in all instances with these organizations, these bills, we've been working with allies throughout the summer and fall in prepping for the session. And with the public bank, they just came out with a brilliant analysis of the governor's just released economic development plan. And in just point after point, took what is in that plan and pointed out that's exactly what the public bank would like to do. I think they're very well poised to come to the session this year and try and get something done.
Okay. Public power is another one.
This is an outgrowth of some work with the Land Office, Renewable Taos, Kit Carson, Electric Co-op, and Retake. And we've been meeting for weeks and weeks and weeks, initially to organize opposition to the Avangrid PNM merger. But as it turned out, we started looking at alternatives to these independent operating utilities, the monopolists like PNM and El Paso Electric. And so what we're going to be proposing in the 2022 session is for a study to be done and a task force to be convened to consider public power, which would essentially be no longer operating with these capitalist utility organizations, but the state in some fashion. And there's a variety of options on this, from the state owning the utility to its creating a corporation, an independent corporation to manage it, or a co-op. And so that's some of the stuff that would be in that study. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that's real transformative, and we're excited about that.
Yeah, and the third one is the Health Security Act.
Health Security Act. They passed a bill in 2021, I'm sorry, that funded 1 year of study and design, plan and design. The idea there was to, rather than come back to the legislature in a couple of years with we've studied this again, and it's really will save us money, trust us. The study and the plan and design process is supposed to lay out exactly how this would work, how it would be paid for, what it would cost, how much would be saved, how would people be covered, how would it address hospitals in rural communities and things like that, all the different aspects of it. And they're not going to have a bill in the 2022 session. They're going to just have a budget amount in the insurance superintendent's budget, who's helping work with the Health Security for New Mexicans campaign.
Because they need increased funding.
They need some more funding to complete the plan.
The planning and design.
So that's something we'll be supporting.
And then number 4 is the Green Amendment.
And the Green Amendment, you folks probably all know what it is, but it basically means that nature has rights, and that people in the community, if they feel that nature is being violated by a policy or a practice of a corporation or of the state, they can file suit claiming damage to nature, land, water, air. And this bill ran into some rough headwind last session, and they've been doing a lot of work with the legislature. and legislators. They now have, I think, 20 bill sponsors. And so they've made a lot of headway, and we'll be supporting that bill.
Well, and it's also people, human beings have rights, right? To
Right.
clean air, clean water,
Right.
so on. So, we are part of nature, I
Right.
guess.
We are. Not
So
a very healthy
a lot
part.
of people forget that. So the fifth one that we know we're going to support, that we're absolutely sure this is coming up again,
Well,
which is
we're
predatory lending,
99% sure.
predatory lending interest rate limits. So everybody knows what that is. The rates are still too high, even though they have been lowered in the last few years. So we're definitely supporting that. I don't think we need to say much about that.
The only thing we need to say about it is the concern we have is that the governor, that so much energy and time is going to be devoted to the two major bills the governor is introducing, Net Zero and Hydrogen Hub Act, which we'll talk about next, that bills like the predatory lending rate may not be introduced. She had made a promise to Think New Mexico and Retake and other supporters of the bill in the last session that she would put it on the call in the 2022 session. We'll have to see whether that transpires.
We'll wait and see. So based on recent announcements from the governor's office, we know there will be at least two bills that we are going to oppose in this coming session. And one is what they are calling the Hydrogen Hub Act. Do you want to say a little bit about that, Paul?
Yeah, this is just, from our perspective, is just basically like New Mexico Oil and Gas Association bill, because the production of hydrogen, which they call clean hydrogen, which is not at all clean, requires fracked gas and oil, and
a lot of water.
And a lot of water.
Yeah.
And
which we don't have.
And the thing that we're concerned about is that the governor has said this is the centerpiece of her legislation. And so we're going to be pressing the governor for details about what she means by this.
The centerpiece of the session.
Of the whole session of her legislative
Hard
agenda.
to imagine.
But the thing that we wrote extensively about this past week, and one of the things we cited was something from Greg Mello, from Lano. What is the name of it? What's the organization?
Working group, something.
Yeah, working group, Los Alamos working group. He does such good work, and he laid out how the science just doesn't support the hydrogen thing or the economics. It's just a nonsense idea.
There was an article in the New Mexican, and he wrote an extensive comment online in response to that. So you can check it out there, or you can look at Paul's blog at retakeourdemocracy.org. The other bill that we know we're going to be opposing is the net zero by 2050. There's so much wrong with net zero that I don't even know if we don't really have time to get into it, right? And that's one of the blogs that you wrote recently.
Right. I do want to just say that, and we've got to make this fast because we're starting to get low on time. We've got about 4 more minutes. But the thing we're most concerned about is the way it was with net zero, is the way it was introduced. It was introduced as this remarkable save the world thing that was going to put New Mexico on the map. It was going to be like a national model, and it was going to send Michelle Lujan Grisham to Glasgow with this like amazing commitment. And what we're afraid of is that this is starting to feel a lot like ETA, Energy Transition Act from 2019, where there was so much hype done in advance that there was just no way to oppose it. And if you went and tried to oppose it, you were characterized as an elitist who didn't care about displaced workers or transitioning communities, or you didn't want to close the coal plants.
There's plenty of science out there that shows that net zero just does not work. So read the blog and learn.
And it's not just science. Indigenous leaders were just outraged, and representatives from the global South, because it's really externalizing all the costs for addressing climate change.
This came up at COP26,
yes.
Not just here in New Mexico, but as a solution worldwide. And it's just a bad idea, another bad idea. What do you know? So we just want to talk really quickly before our time runs out. For those of you who aren't familiar with our process and how do we choose which bills we're going to support every year. So first, and very importantly, we have discussions with allies and talk to them about what are their top 1 or 2 bills that they're going to be promoting and supporting. People like Voices for Children,
Think New Mexico.
New Mexico, excuse me. You know, a lot of different groups that are promoting, you know, the public banking people, the Health Security Act, who have expertise and experience on these topics. So
it's not just us picking them.
Right. So we consult with them. Then the other, we have some criteria that we use, and that is we ask questions, and we're telling you this. And if you're interested in reviewing bills as they're introduced, we invite you to contact us to volunteer to look through bills and identify bills that we might want to add to our list. And we'll tell you how to contact us again in just a second. But these are the questions that we ask when we're looking at bills. Does the bill have a potentially game-changing impact and meet a broad and pressing need in our state? Does it address the needs of significantly underserved populations or communities in New Mexico? Could the addition of statewide advocacy efforts push the bill through?
And that's an important one, because what we don't do is we won't, like, we didn't have the abortion repeal, the abortion ban bill on our priority list last time, not because we didn't think it was important, but because we could see it was a slam dunk. It was going to sail through. It didn't require our support.
Right.
So
likewise, if we hear from trusted sources that a bill is just not going to go anywhere, it'll die and be reintroduced the following year, we usually don't put a lot of energy into that either, because we need to, you know, really focus and put our energy where we know it's going to count. So beyond those criteria, we already talked about this. So we prioritize bills that address the needs of New Mexico's low-income working families, the needs of tribal and rural New Mexico, and bills that are going to genuinely address climate change in our state. So what else do we need to
well,
say?
the bills we've already identified are either bills we previously supported that didn't pass or that we know will need additional advocacy. For example, the Health Security Act in 2021,
which we already talked about.
We talked about. In 2022, the campaign will seek funding to continue that process, the health security.
We covered that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there will be new bills that will be introduced. And so we've got 5 right now and 2 that we're going to be opposing. And there will be bills introduced starting on what?
Tuesday, January 4th. That's a pre-filing date starts. And then the session itself starts on Tuesday, January 18th. 2 weeks later, bills can be introduced all the way through till February 2nd. And then the session ends on February 17th.
And we could use 2 or 3 more volunteers to start screening bills starting January 4th, because they come in hundreds. And we've got a couple of trained people who do that, and we can work together to make sure you understand how to do that effectively. It's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so if you're interested, please email us.
Extremely helpful to us.
Yes, email us at retakeresponse@gmail.com.
If you have questions about anything else we said, same email address. And thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll be back next week. Roxanne, you want to say
join the huddle?
Join the huddle. We'll be back next week. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.